Hello everyone. I wanted to go over the Cooperating Teacher CSU Observe tool that we will utilize this semester as we observe our teacher candidates. So once you are online, if you'll go to tinyurl.com/CSU Cooperating Teacher Observe, that will direct you to the Google form that we'll be using to do our evaluations. As you go to this site, the first thing they'll do is ask you for your email address, and so there you can just type in your school email address. That ensures that you will receive a copy of the results from the evaluation. If you've used Google Forms before, you're very familiar with this format, but it'll ask you for your first name and your last name and the email address. Then it's going to ask you to enter the teacher candidate's email address. And from there, you just need to have this with you before you enter the responses. And so you can just type that in. I'm just going to type in an email address here just to have something there. Then it's going to ask you information regarding the actual observation. Here's where you select the date, and if this is the first observation for formal or informal, we'll get to that in just a moment, but you'll kind of list that there. So is it your first informal, your first formal, and you'll just kind of indicate that, and I'll show you in the next page where that will make a difference. Then you'll select the grade level that you're observing, and if it is other than any of the grade levels listed here, if it's a multiple grade level, you can indicate that in that text box there. You'll select the grade subject, the subject area. So if it's a math lesson, you'll select math. If it's a combination of multiple subjects, you will go ahead and select those. If it's a subject other than the ones listed, you'll list that out there. The start and stop times, you'll just put if the lesson you're observing begins at 8 and you're anticipating it go to 8:45, that's what you just list there, just so we kind of know what that is. And then, is this lesson a co-teaching lesson or not? Yes or no. If you select yes, it's going to ask you for which strategy is being utilized. If you select no, it's just going to move forward. I'm going to select no, just for right now. Then the next page asks you, is this an informal or a formal lesson? The formal lessons being that the formal observations are going to observe the instruction domain, the planning domain, and the environment domain, whereas the informal observation will only be observing the instruction and the environment domains. So for our purposes, the format is the same for both. It just only observes those two those two standards. So I'm going to select informal first just to kind of show you what it looks like. It's just going to tell you that for this one, you're going to need the rubric with you, so it's actually going to be more of a rubric, a rating grid that you'll indicate those. And then if there's informal feedback related to the instruction domain, you can type that there. It's paragraphed, so as you keep typing, it will open up more space. For the environment domain, same thing. You'll just have the rating there and then feedback, because again, this is an informal. At the very last slide, it asks you to give some overall feedback, if applicable, the co-teaching strategy, and if there are any opportunities for improvement or next steps, you can type that there and then click submit, and that's all you have to do. If you are doing a formal observation, it's a little bit more involved. You click formal, and it actually will provide you with each of the domains. One per page. So the instruction domain is on the first page, and it goes through each of the 12 indicators. And so all you have to do is, as you look through, you decide what rating that you want to rate the teacher candidate, and that will be either proficient, which is the target, or exemplary, needs improvement, or unsatisfactory. Obviously, proficient is the target. That's rock solid teaching, so that's the goal for us. And so if anything that's other than proficient will need some sort of comment or explanation, and you can do that in placing those comments here. So I'm going to go through and just rate as if this teacher candidate had proficient for each of these, and that may not be realistic right now, but I'm just for the purpose of having something. If they're proficient, you don't necessarily need to put comments unless you just want to provide some specific feedback, which is always helpful for our teacher candidates. Then I want to come down to the very last indicator, which is number 13. This is the qualifying measures indicator, and you may have seen this or may not. This just refers to student versus teacher-centered instruction. For each of the domains, there is a qualifying measure in a component added to the end. So that just basically means, is the instruction student-centered versus teacher-centered or teacher-directed? And so you rate them on that continuum just like you do. And there will be one of those for each of those domains. So once you go through the first domain, that one's the longest, so it does take the most time. Then you move on into the planning domain. And so you'll do the same thing for those. And I'm just going to slide on down to the very last one. This one, you'll notice, only has those 3, with the 4th one being the qualifying measure. So you'll rate those. Then you'll go into the environment domain, which has fewer, same as the other one. It does have like 5, I think. And you go through, rate those, but again, you'll see the qualifying measure related as it relates to environment. Once you've selected each of the 3, just as you did for the informal, you provide overall feedback, any feedback related to the co-teaching strategy if you participated in that, and then areas for improvement or refinement there, and then you click submit. Once you click submit, it will send you a copy of the responses. It will also email the teacher candidate a copy of the responses as well. So I just wanted to make that so that you know that you have a record of it. I would encourage you to either make a folder for those in your email inbox. You can kind of save those and keep track. And then the cooperating teacher candidates will be printing those out and putting them in their portfolios. So I wanted to mention that we do make available the paper copies of both of these documents, and the teacher candidates have access to them. You have access to them in the handbook that we sent out using the Weebly site, and those are posted as appendices in the clinical practice handbook, but they can print them out individually if you prefer to have the paper copy. Some people like to handwrite and then enter the scores. Some prefer just to enter directly into the Google form. In either case, you need to be prepared to go all the way through because you can't save your changes and come back later. You have to go ahead and submit those things. And also, you cannot use the back buttons if you want to go back. If you want to navigate backwards, you have to use these buttons that are listed here in the bottom. That's how you navigate. If you click back, you have to start all the way over, and you don't want to do that. So those are just a couple things. So if you do choose to use the paper copy, please make sure that you enter your scores using this online tool, because this is how we will collect data for the entire School of Education to analyze this data for opportunities for improvement as well as evaluation. So please make sure you do that. Again, that URL, as I showed you earlier, there's a tiny URL, is CSU. I don't have it. I've had it pulled up, and I think I must have closed it out. But anyway, it was listed at the first of the video. If you have questions, please reach out to your university supervisor. Do not hesitate to reach out to them, and they can answer any questions you have. Have a great day, and as always, let us know if you have any questions.